Why is my PTSD treatment not working? Great question. Let's talk about it. Hey, I'm Dr. McCleary, licensed clinical psychologist and Navy veteran, and I make mental health videos for veterans and their families. In this video, I'm going to talk about my top 3 reasons that your PTSD treatment may not be working as well as it could be working, and 3 ways to fix it. Whether you've had PTSD treatment in the past, are thinking about getting into PTSD treatment, or if you're in PTSD treatment right now, this video is for you. And stay to the end because I'm going to give you a bonus tip on why your treatment is not working. Jumping right in, my first reason that PTSD treatment may not be working for you is a simple one. You ain't ready. A lot of times what happens in PTSD treatment is somebody shows up to the first session. They spill their guts. They feel terrible and they never come back. One of the reasons that not being ready for PTSD treatment is important is because you are going to have to do some things in PTSD treatment that I can almost guarantee you do not want to do. One of those things is you're going to have to talk about and revisit your trauma. And nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to do it so much that is actually a part of a PTSD diagnosis. Avoiding triggers or things, people, places that remind you of the trauma is literally a symptom of PTSD. So it makes total sense that you may not want to revisit your trauma. Matter of fact, if you did, we might be looking at another issue. Not being ready to fully engage in PTSD treatment is one of the biggest reasons why PTSD treatment oftentimes does not work, because the individual either is not putting in the work, feels like they can't put in the work, or is just not ready. Now, here's the good news. You can get ready, and there will be no time in which you are completely comfortable, especially in the beginning of PTSD treatment, to disclose these things, to talk about these things, to explore the thoughts and emotions related to your trauma. But there's good news. If you have a decent therapist, notably I didn't say good therapist, just decent, they will help you get there. So many times people feel like they're not ready. Okay, they're not ready to take that action. So this is when a decent therapist shifts their focus. They shift their focus in getting you prepared to be ready for PTSD treatment. And that's something that all therapists are trained to do, to help you get to the next level so you're ready to make a change. Because PTSD treatment, fully engaging in PTSD treatment, is going to take you doing some things that you're a little bit uncomfortable doing. So, getting there, being ready for treatment, that's how you can help yourself. And your therapist can help you. My second reason of why PTSD treatment may not be working for you is a reason that every therapist, every psychologist that's done a lot of trauma treatment has ran into. You're working on the wrong trauma. If you're getting value from this video, go ahead and click that like button and consider subscribing to my channel if you want to learn more about PTSD. An unfortunate reality of traumas for many people is they have more than one. And PTSD treatment works best when you go for the worst one. You go for the glory. You cut the head off the snake. So often what a trauma therapist will ask you in the beginning of treatment is, what is your worst trauma? And it may seem arbitrary, but it's not. Sometimes if somebody is having trouble identifying their worst trauma, often I say, it's probably the one that you don't want to tell me about. That's the one that we should probably be working on. Oftentimes, people will say the trauma or the experience that they feel comfortable or ready to discuss. And that may not be the trauma that's actually driving a lot of your symptoms. So, one of the reasons that trauma treatment may not be working is because you're working on the wrong trauma. Here's the good news. You can fix this. Even if you are in the middle of treatment, letting your therapist know that you've experienced another trauma, maybe one that they are totally unaware of. I've done a lot of trauma treatment with people, and with veterans, with active duty service members, with first responders. And what ends up happening sometimes is, well, they're not totally comfortable with you in the beginning. Fair, total stranger. So they give you the easy trauma, if you will. So they talk about the combat trauma. But the trauma that's really bothering them is when they were molested as a child. It's easy to work on the wrong trauma for people that have experienced many traumas. So you have to ask the questions, and you have to feel comfortable enough and have the courage enough to work on the quote right trauma, even if that is going to bring you to a place where you don't want to be. This is part of being ready. So if you're in PTSD treatment, try your best to work on the right one. My third reason that PTSD treatment isn't working as well for you as it could be working is you don't have the time. PTSD treatment, I'd argue more than a lot of treatments, is predicated on you showing up consistently, you showing up every week or multiple times a week, maybe even multiple times a day, and putting in the time. Now, what ends up happening, because people have lives, people have jobs, they end up being sporadic in attending treatment sessions. And what this does is it puts a lot of time in between to avoid, to not do the work. And that actually is incredibly important when we're talking about PTSD treatment. As I said earlier, avoidance is literally part of the diagnosis. So the more opportunity that you give yourself to avoid, even if it's real stuff that comes up, you got a meeting, and you have to cancel an appointment. Okay, it happens. But if this becomes consistent, if this becomes a habit, then a decent therapist or psychologist might have a conversation with you saying that it may not be the right time for you. Here's the tip. If PTSD treatment is important to you, if your life is being heavily affected by PTSD, you need to carve out some time for it. Carve out some time, not just for treatment, but to take care of yourself during the process. Because the more times that you show up and you show up consistently, generally, the better that the treatment will work and the faster that you'll become better. I told you guys if you stayed to the end that I would give you a bonus tip. And either you stayed to the end or you fast forwarded to the end. Either way, I'm glad you're here. My final reason why PTSD treatment doesn't work is you didn't do your homework. Almost all PTSD treatments require you doing something outside of session, doing worksheets or handouts, doing exposure exercises. And if you're not doing those things, well, guess what? You're not actually fully engaging in treatment. Now, does everybody do assignments 3 times every day? Well, no. And people still get better. However, when people don't do any homework or do the minimum, often PTSD treatment is not working as well for them. And part of it is because, and this is simple, you're not actually getting the full treatment. The full treatment involves you doing things outside the session that also is helping you. This is incredibly important and something that I say all the time. I probably say it 3 times a day. Please do your homework or your assignments or your exercises. Some people don't like the word homework. Got a bad taste in their mouth from school. Doing your homework or your exercises is going to greatly enhance the likelihood that you're actually going to get better from PTSD treatment. Because think about it. It's simple math. 1 hour or an hour and a half once a week, that's not a whole lot of time. So if that's the only time in which you're working on yourself, working on your trauma, working on your PTSD symptoms that are with you 24 hours a day, well, guess what? That's not a whole lot of time. So completing your homework on a consistent basis is going to greatly increase your chances of actually recovering and healing from your trauma. Something to think about. If this video was helpful for you, please like it. Subscribe to my channel if you want to learn more about PTSD and mental health. But more important than that, if this video was helpful for you, then that means it can probably be helpful for another veteran. So I ask that you share it with them. Because at the end of the day, that's really what all this is about. One veteran trying to help another.